For most of my life, I had a problem with anxiety, and sometimes it became so severe, I was mentally unwell, like pretty bad, and I really needed treatment, which for me was therapy, in my case, cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm not going to go on at you about that because I'm not a mental health professional, and this is an art channel, not a mental health channel, really. So I won't go on and on about that whole experience, but one thing that it led me to was understanding that I can do things regardless of the nonsense stuff that my brain sometimes likes to produce. And that process has been really useful to learning to draw and paint. Because one thing that happens before we're going to do the drawing practice is our brains will try to prevent us from doing the drawing practice and not be consistent with when we're doing it. Then during the drawing practice, if we can get ourselves to do the practice during the practice, our brains will distort what we're looking at and interfere in the drawing process and mess up the drawings, make it less fun. And then after, when we're looking back on the stuff that we made, it's gonna focus on the things that are wrong and that we don't like, and distort it towards the negative again. So before, during, and after a drawing, our brains are going to get up in there and start messing with things. And so in order to learn how to draw and paint, we've got to learn how to rewire our brains and completely change how we're seeing things, disengage from the things that our brains naturally want to do and start to refocus towards things that are more useful. And that was actually a really similar process to what I had to do in my whole life in order to deal with this anxiety thing and start actually enjoying life, was to figure out what I care about, what my values are. It's nice that it's the same word as a big thing we need to see clearly in art. In art, we need to see clearly light to dark, so values in that sense. And then in life, I had to figure out what I really care about, my actual values. Anyway, and then recognize all these distortions and nonsense that my brain was producing, and kind of separate away from that a little bit, use my brain's nonsense stuff when it's useful and put it aside when it's not useful. It's a really similar process to learning about art. So when I was learning about this for my mental health, I found a really useful mental health coach and teacher called Freeman, who had been through a lot of the similar things and had really figured out a lot of useful stuff. So I'll link his YouTube channel below if you're interested in that. So Mark visited London and we ran a workshop for a few people, and it was an exercise in drawing a face and then noticing how our brain will start to interpret so many things about the face. And it was interesting because everybody would draw this face in terms of eyes, nose, mouth, right? The features that we interpret and process in our brains. And then the exercise was, how about try seeing it a different way? See it in terms of the shapes of the values and try to draw those shapes of light and dark instead. And the idea isn't that it's immediately easier. In fact, it's probably going to be harder when you do this. And there's lots of exercises like this in art, not just this values one, but there's loads of stuff where it's not so much that once you start doing it, suddenly everything's easy, we've got the answer, and it's just like a life, it's like an art hack, right? It's not an art hack, it's a slow rewiring to see things completely differently. I decided to take Mark urban sketching. I decided urban sketching would be fun because it'd be cool to go out into London, but also because I've never done urban sketching. And so I thought, this is going to throw up a lot of doubt. Stuff will probably go wrong as I do drawings and paintings with Mark. And so that will be good conversation for us because, there'll be more doubts and worries and stuff like that. So one thing that we talked about was how you feel like you should be in control of your drawing.
It's fascinating that we can look at something and know exactly what it looks like, but also not actually know what it looks like. Yeah. We're like, oh, I know that. But then I'm
then
creating...
somehow warp it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our brains are so useless
Yeah.
How did humans ever
Which is just the country.
ever cover the planet? There's so many things where the moments, even memories, there's all sorts of interesting research on how things people really believe they remember correctly
Oh, right.
is incorrect.
Like in witness.
Yes, there used to
statements and
be
things.
such a, eyewitness accounts were so used at one time
Yeah.
in law, in courts, and now they've really fallen out of favor because people are wrong.
People misremember, even without bad intentions, just
Yep,
by accident.
just
sort of
by
thing.
being human.
Yeah, the other area that I think brain warping happens is just life.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Our ideas about ourselves,
Yeah.
about other people
What did they think about what I said or something like that?
are so skewed.
Yeah. Techniques of drawing are like actually about rewiring your brain and your eyes and how your brain interacts with your eyes and stuff like that. And so I will have these expectations
Yeah.
of that as very easy to do, as if I've got control. It's like I should have control of myself. So
Yes.
if I know what to do and I can just tell my brain to do that and tell my eyes to do that, then what's the problem? You know what I mean? And then you do it and it just does not work, right? And you're watching someone on the tutorial whose brain has already been rewired, and you're thinking, well, like, what's wrong with my brain?
Oh,
Does that make sense?
totally.
Yeah.
I think even when we're translating what we see into shapes and drawings, there's always this feeling, like I know what I want to draw. Why isn't it appearing on the paper?
Yeah, exactly.
That's not what I wanted to
Yeah, like,
create.
why don't I have control of this? Better control of this. Yeah, exactly.
Because we definitely have a feeling or a sense that we're in control of it.
Yes. Like I'm seeing with my eyes, I'm moving the pencil myself, and yet the thing that I just did was not what I asked for. Right? But so when we did the workshop yesterday, obviously a lot of people are sort of thinking about, am I doing this well in terms of, is the drawing outcome looking good? But definitely what I was looking for was much more just with a willing to try to do it differently. Right?
That emphasis on difference I found really valuable and important.
Yeah.
Because so often that's just that willingness to do a thing differently is what's so important in mental health.
Yeah, because it was like, if you draw in the stand, like the way that you're sort of naturally inclined to when you're starting with drawing, is very comfortable. Well, it's not comfortable, it's still hard, but it's like, this feels sort of like how you should do it. And then when you try and draw in the sort of way that art teachers and stuff suggest, with value simplification and whatever, then it's not going to be more comfortable. It's actually going to be less comfortable. And some people will interpret that as being, it wasn't for me, I did it wrong, or something like that.
It felt bad.
Yeah, and it's supposed to feel bad. That's why it's an exercise.
Because you're doing something different. It's funny because that's such an important part of, like, we're making changes around mental health too. Right. It's going to feel bad. Even if we're doing something that's going to be so useful for doing things we've always wanted to do our whole life, it is going to feel bad at first because we're just doing a different thing than we've been doing, even when we can see that the old way of doing it has been disastrous. We're like, this old way of doing things has destroyed my life. Oh, it feels really uncomfortable to change it. I'm not going to.
Yeah, and there's a reason you've been doing it, is because it sort of felt natural, or it felt like comfortable in that moment, and then it was. And so the way I like to think about it is the fundamental art technique, applying perspective, value simplification, forms, is very uncomfortable. Your drawings look bad. It feels bad, but it has a real future to it.
Okay, yeah.
You know, it's got a real path to somewhere good in front of it.
Yeah.
And then the original way of doing it has is spinning you're basically going to be stuck there.
Yeah.
Like I was stuck there for such a long time.
May I have a peach?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Oh, it's shitty right now.
Yeah, but then it's like going to be... Yep.
The ugly is so beautiful.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
So it's tricky because we can't control the outcome as much as we think we can. So how do we do this successfully then? Something I got from Mark that I think is really useful is this analogy of a puppy. The part of ourselves that's learning to draw and paint is this puppy part of ourselves. So we watch a tutorial, get the idea, no problem. We've comprehended it, right? Because it was a good tutorial. It was a Love Life drawing tutorial, so it was really good. You get it. But the puppy didn't get it. Puppies don't understand tutorials. So you get it, and now you need to train that puppy to get it, right? That's the part that actually produces the drawings and paintings. So you understand and you're transferring it. So how do you transfer something to a puppy who doesn't speak English? And you can't just say, hey, just do it. Just simplify the values, man. You can't do that. So what do? You got to do lots of repetition and positive reinforcement, nudging this puppy into the right direction. And it's going to keep peeing on the sofa and it's going to keep making mistakes. But with time, it's going to figure it out because you've just repeated that simple message over and over again with lots of positive, fun reinforcement. So another thing I talked about with Mark was waiting for the right feelings before we do the practice or before we draw the way we need to draw.
Yeah, something that comes up a lot with illustrations that I'll often work with people on is learning how to share their rough work or learning how to share things that have what they'll see as mistakes in them.
Right.
Like allowing ourselves to not have to have things right.
Yeah.
Is always a big barrier. Like learning how, because it translates then into all sorts of other things. Like we do it with feelings too all the time. We're like, oh, this feeling doesn't feel right now. I'm not going to go talk to that person. I'm not going to try starting something new.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go to that social event. I don't feel right. Once we get locked into that idea that like we should feel right and there's a right feeling to have,
yeah,
it gets in the way of so many.
It's true. I have that a lot with people being like, well, I haven't drawn because I didn't get the get the inspiration or get the feel to do it.
Yep, that's a great example of where
man, if you wait to practice, oh, don't worry. If you wait to practice for that feeling, you're going to be drawing like once a year. Well, you know what I mean? Or maybe it'll be more than that, but it won't be enough in terms of practice. And it's so unnecessary to have that feeling before you start sketching. You know what I mean?
Totally,
it doesn't need to be like this massive inspirational moment or something.
That's why I always say motivation is a unicorn fart. Because also that feeling, we're believing in this really special feeling.
Yeah. And
it's this reassurance thing that, because if I have this special feeling, then I'm going to do good. Yeah. Or I'm confident.
Yes. Yeah. I'll have the energy to do it. I'll have the it's like...
It probably just means they're doing something they feel safe enough to do.
Right.
Which isn't going to be that exciting.
It's true.
Because I used to do it all the time. Once I would think or believe that I need to have a special feeling for something. Also, the special feeling would never be there. And so I would do more and more things to try to get that special feeling. Yeah. That I can start whatever project or I can try something new.
The motivation to do it.
Yeah, and then it's never there.
Yeah. I used to do that a lot with like at university. I would wait until it's so late to do the essay or whatever that it's this huge, scary problem.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, I'm going to do it now.
I think then we get hooked on that too, where it's gotta feel
It's got to be like an emergency or a
under
crisis.
pressure.
Yeah.
That's the other reason I don't like looking for even if we're looking for a special good feeling, we're locking in this idea that either you've got to have a really good feeling to do something or a really bad feeling.
Yeah, that was looking for a really bad feeling, yeah.
That leads to having a lot of really bad feelings.
Yeah, you're just going to almost look for anxiety and fear to drive you forward all the time.
It's harder.
We become reliant on it.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. Like, I really realized I didn't know how to function when I wasn't struggling with anxiety anymore, because that was the only way I'd ever known how to function.
Right, like why would you do something unless you're terrified enough to do it? And
that was my motivation for doing everything.
Let's say you don't have the feeling of you don't have motivation. You don't have that sort of special feeling people are looking for. How do you then get yourself to do stuff, right? How do you replace either fear or motivation, like carrot or a stick type of thing? How do you replace that with, I don't know, something else?
Exactly. I think it's like you were saying with brushing our teeth, where we almost in a way don't replace it. It's a thing we do.
Yeah.
It really helps me with detaching from that old system. If the old system was having a bad feeling or chasing a good feeling, was to just see there are things I do.
Right.
Like when I tied my shoes up on the way out here, I didn't have to think, okay, like, do I have the right feeling? Or I have to do this because if I don't, I'll trip and fall and smash my face in later.
Yeah.
It was just, no, I'm going to tie my shoes. It's just a thing I do. And so that's why even like a practice like us coming out here just to draw, there's no special purpose behind this. It's just a thing we're doing.
It's true, yeah.
I think we are often looking for some kind of special significance to any moment in life, but we can actually just sit and draw and then draw more.
And just keep, and it's funny.
Or paint.
And it's sort of funny because that is actually how results, it's not results oriented, but it sort of secretly does achieve the result a lot better.
100%.
Because you just do so much, right? Oh, that's great.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's so good.
I'm liking it.
Yeah, really nice, man.
So it's really, really fun to hang out with Mark. He's basically someone who is out there showing people that they can fundamentally change the ways that they do things, and that it may not necessarily be just super comfortable and easy at first, but as you practice it, you gain that skill, and then everything changes. I mean, for me, life just became way more enjoyable without this cloud of anxiety over me all the time. And it's a skill where I'm kind of intermediate, and I'm trying to work towards getting better and better at these skills. Then in art and drawing and painting, what we're trying to do on this channel is we don't just do, this is how you draw an eye and give you a 5-step eye drawing process, or any kind of easy art hacks, or just use this, just use AI or something like that. Trying to actually give you the process to fundamentally see things differently, see things in the way that artists have been seeing these things for hundreds of years in terms of values and forms and things like that. And what's really great is that it's not that many things that you need to learn how to do, but it does take time to undo all the nonsense from the brain and reprogram it in these ways. But once you can do it, it's so wonderful, because you'll be able to make the artwork that you dream of creating, and it will feel natural and normal because you'll have practiced it so much, this new way of doing things. So I hope that this was helpful. I think it can feel slightly more vague than specific technical instructions that we normally give, but it's really it's the prerequisite. Like, you need to have this mindset in order to get the other stuff. All right, so if you want to have ongoing support month to month, hang out with me and practice, do our courses that systematically build these fundamental skills, then check out our study group. The link is below. Otherwise, let me know what you thought about all of this stuff, because this is stuff that I think about a lot, not just for drawing and painting, but in my whole life. Anyway, see you in the next one.